You gonna tell us some more stories?
You like jokes?
Yeah.
This is a little bit dirty. It's not bad though.
Can you tell it in church?
Can you tell it in church? I guess you could, but some people might not like it considering it's about a preacher.
Let's go with it.
As this farmer, there's this preacher and a beggar, and they lived in this little tiny church outside of town. And the church, it was a leaking, so they had to get a carpenter to come in and fix the church. And while they was fixing it, they told him, I says, well, you're going to have to go somewhere and spend the night. The preacher said, well, the farmer, he lives right down the road here. He said, we can stay with him. So they went down there about dusty dark, knocked on the door. And the farmer come to the door and he said, what can I do for you, preacher? He says, well, they're working on the church. And he says, I'm going to have somewhere to stay tonight if it's okay. And he says, that's fine. Since you're the preacher, you sleep with my daughter. And since you're the beggar, you sleep in the floor. Well, it come bedtime that night and they all went to bed. And the farmer's daughter, you know,
There's Ken.
she's a virgin.
Uh-oh.
She's never experienced nothing in her life. And being the preacher, he's never been married, so he's never really experienced either, none in his life. Well, in the middle of the night, she started reaching over and she grabbed a hold of his Peter and says, what's that? He said, that's my Peter. He said, don't call it Peter, call it glory pole. Well, she kind of got a little bit more curious. She reached down and she grabbed a hold of his nutsack and said, what's that? He said, that's my nutsack. He said, don't call it nutsack, call it dumbbells. Well, this just tore this preacher plumb up, you know, and he was thinking, well, Lord, when she touched my body, I ought to have the right to touch her body. You know, we're not doing nothing. It's just, you know, curious. Well, he reached over and he grabbed a hold of her breast and he says, what's that? She says, that's my breast. He says, don't call it breast, call it Snow-Cap Mountain. And then he reached down and he grabbed a hold of her belly and said, what's that? She says, oh, that's my belly. He said, don't call it belly, call it slick on the side. Well, he reached down and he grabbed a hold of her woo-ha and he said, what's that? She said, that's my woo-ha. Said, don't call it woo-ha, call it glory hole. Well, now you got to remember, this beggar's been laying right there on the floor this whole time. I mean, it's tore him up. They just roll over and go to sleep, but the beggar all night, he's a-pulling his hair, going every which way but loose. His eyes look like he's been up all night. He gets up the next morning, though, and he's coming down the stairs.
That sounds like me.
And he's whistling Dixie, you know, singing that little tune. The farmer looks up at him. He says, well, beggar, since you're such in a good mood today, he said, come on down, set a table and say the grace. He said, farmer, he said, I'd be more than happy to say grace this morning. He bowed his head and he closed his eyes and he says, oh, precious Lord, heaven above. He says, Lord, I wished I was on Snow-Cap Mountain, sliding down Slickerman's Lane, sticking my glory pole in that glory hole and listening to dumbbells ring. Amen.
Oh, my goodness.
Wasn't too bad, Dirk.
No, it wasn't.
No, I may tell you.
Don't get too nasty. That's Ken over there.
That's Ken over there.
I kept it as clean as I could.
Keep it clean now.
Yeah, it is. That's what Mama.
You did good.
Cowboy said Mama
I'll keep it clean.
cranberry juice for kidney infection.
Cigarette out here.
Oh, I'll get it.
You know why boys are faster than girls, don't you? Because they got a stick shift and two balls.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Ken.
He was a carpenter. She was a carpenter. You say what you think?
Oh, I bet.
And he was building
I
a
love Venice.
and this little boy, about 4 years old, he had a hammer. Bam, bam, bam.
Best.
He said, my dad's got two of them. He said, really?
Somebody fixed that I know. It was
Got a handsaw out. He said, you know, my dad's got a hammer too. One of them. He got two of them. The old man had to go around the corner and take a piss. The boy standing there watching him. He said, I guess your dad's got two of them too. He said, no, but he's got one for We'll make two of them. I'm done.
All right. How about that, Richard?
Get me on the camera. That's there. Yeah, baby.
Let me tell you this new one.
All right, let's go.
You know, I don't want to start on jokes.
The Lord makes things in mysterious ways for us to understand women, but it's hard sometimes. That's why he says, woe, man. That's why he called them women. Because man, if he ain't careful, he don't woe to them. They're like elephants. They don't never forget nothing. And remember, 20 years down the road at you, and throw it back at you. It'd be just one thing. You know, you do, Ron. They can do 100,000 things. And, you know, better not say that. But anyhow, I'm kind of aggravated sometimes in life, and I thought, well, Lord, yeah, something I ain't. Me and when we sat around, we can talk about. Not to be mean to women, but explain. Well, you know, Adam, from the beginning of the time, he created everything. He created woman. Well, God created it, but he named it. That's what I mean. And he needed a helpmate. Even the Bible said he needed a helpmate. So took one rib out to make the woman. But during that time, he told him, he says, look, I'm going to put you to sleep. I'm going to take one of your ribs out, and I'm going to make you a helpmate. And she's going to be down in the garden. And he says, when you wake up, he says, you go down in the garden, and she'll be down there picking the weeds out of it. Well, sure enough, he went to sleep. He put her down in the garden. He woke up, and he come across that hill, and he looked down upon that graze where the garden was, and she was down there. And lo and behold, she was pulling the vegetables out left and right instead of the weeds. He come running down the hill, and he was saying, whoa, man, whoa. Yeah, that's something I just made up.
The birthday boy over there. When you gonna cut the cake?
He's admiring it right now. He might freeze it.
It's too pretty to cut.
I'm really proud of my cake. What you got right on it?
Happy birthday.
Well, that's pretty. I really proud of my cake.
Well, I hope you have many, many more birthdays.
I got some beer and stuff in there.
I told all of them that I wanted to live.
I'm just drinking these because they're
I wanted to live to be 115-year-old and die having sex.
Oh, Lord.
Die having.
I wish I could make it that far.
Depending on how much he drank.
they were.